Okay, back in the same spot as last time for another update on the Himalayan, Project Himalayan. So finally, after 6 months of delay, I've fitted the cam, the Tec Cam, to this Euro 4 bike. So the cam came out, what, 18 months ago or so. I think I got one of the second or third batches. There was a bit of excitement about it, you know, this claim that it was going to add 20% more power or 4 to 5 brake horsepower to a 24 horsepower bike. You know, that's quite a big change. So I bought the cam, and then life took over, and you know, as everyone else has got excuses for being busy, so it sat on a shelf, never got fitted. And I guess that, you know, if you're going to look into that, you'd say, well, that's quite a big indictment as to what I thought about it having bought it. You know, I rode a couple of people's bikes who had fitted the cam, as well as an exhaust, an uprated can, and a fuel delete kit, and the air filter and things like that. And I was always a little bit indifferent. Yes, you could notice a little bit more top end squirt, maybe a little bit more overtaking potential. But did it transform the bike? Did it overcome what it is, a slow adventure bike? And no, I didn't think there was enough of a leap to get too excited about. So that cam sat on the shelf, and I just carried on my business. And then over winter, I thought, yeah, it's probably about time to get it fitted. I took it down to our local bike shop, Islands. Phil there, who runs it, said, you know, come down, put it on the bench. We'll look over your shoulder and make sure it's going in all right. What I would say is it's a relatively easy fit, but if I'd have been at home doing it, I think I would have panicked a little bit and probably a bit uncertain. Once you've done all the bolts at the top, you know, on the video, there's a really good video that Tec Cam do on the installation, but you know, like him, he undoes his bolts and then lifts the head straight off. On my bike, it was just sealed solid, so Phil had to get a mallet and a chisel and almost, like, you know, whack the head off. So it is a little bit more of an amateur DIY job, and I think if anybody's slightly on the fence of nervousness, just take it down your shop. You know, it might cost you 100 quid, 120 quid, but I think for peace of mind, because you could easily go wrong, you could easily drop a nut down one of the ports or something like that, and then you know, you're in a world of trouble, or you get the timing out and you seize the engine. So I would say, you know, don't feel bad if you think I'm going to take it down the shop. There's no man points lost in doing that, for the peace of mind. I had it fitted 2 days ago. I was out on it yesterday. It rained a lot. I did some trails. And what I really want to know is, does it affect the bike's ability to low down on the trails? And I've got to say, having ridden it yesterday on some familiar local trails to me, no, it doesn't. It doesn't affect its ability to chug in that first gear, slow speed, no clutch slip way it does. You know, that's the Enfield's strength, that with barely any throttle, barely any speed, with no clutch, it won't stall, it'll just chug, and that helps you to guide the bike on the throttle up those twistier, gnarlier, rockier sections. So it doesn't ruin any of that, you don't lose any of that, and I think that was a little bit my concern. And I do wonder, those other bikes I've ridden where it felt like that maybe that had happened, I just wonder if the indulgence of adding the aftermarket can and the fuel delete and the power commander and things like that, I actually wonder if that doesn't do them any good. And actually, a bike just with a cam, is, for me anyway, is probably enough, because everything remained brilliant on it. You know, the fueling was still good. So I don't know. It'll always come down to personal opinion and how much money you've got in your pocket, and how bored you are sat at home in winter as to how much you're going to spend on aftermarket parts. You know, for me, I added it up. There's about 1,200 quid in bits that I've added to this bike. £500 for the lift kit from Cooperb, 30 quid for the handlebars, 80 quid for the sump guard, 200 quid's worth of tyres, 65 quid for a cool cover, the cam 200 quid. You know, it all adds up, and sometimes I think with the beauty of the Himalayan is it made brilliant economic sense. Not the best bike in the world, but at the price point it came in at, I mean, it came in at £4,000 English pound. It rose to 5,000, which I think is getting a little bit salty for what is now a 5-year-old bike. But to spend that sort of percentage of money to improve the bike, I'm still on the fence. I really don't know, and I don't think I could say to you, yes, it's worth spending the money, or no, it's not. I think you've got to ask yourself, do you want to spend 20% of the bike's value on adding bits that maybe tweak it a little bit, you know? So this cam, yeah, I think I'm taking it gently because you've got to run it in for 300 miles, but you can feel a bit more growl mid-range. So about 4,000, which is where you're supposed to rev limit it to for the first 300 miles, you can feel it picking up better. It does feel a bit sprightlier. The suspension, the added ground clearance, yes, you can ride ruts a little bit easier. It does give you a bit more clearance on the pegs, but, you know, Does that make the bike 20% bigger, better even? And I don't think it does. You know, I was thinking about this. I'm planning a trip to Morocco in the winter, taking a Himalayan and maybe a group of people to do some trail riding. Now, if I bought my Himalayan, what of those components that are fitted to this bike would I need or look to purchase for a trip around Morocco? And I've got to say, the only two things I buy, cool cover and the handlebars. I wouldn't bother with anything else for somewhere like Morocco. I wouldn't even change the tyres, you know, because those standard Seat tyres, they'll do an ample job in dry dirt, dry situations. Not deep sand, but then nothing will in deep sand. So, Project Himalayan, suspension's a success. The cam, early days, I'll need to do a follow-up video when I've run it in. That seems a success. It's actually made the engine feel a bit smoother. So, I'm happy with that. It's just down to you. I can't tell you, and I think people are looking for somebody to say, yes, buy it or don't buy it, but I can't do that. All I can say is, yeah, for 200 quid, you've got a bit more squirt and a bit more top end and a bit more zest. If you want to spend 200 quid on a cam and then 60 on an air filter or whatever, 100 on an end can, you've got to weigh up if those calculations work for you or not. You know, it's a personal decision. I think once you get to spending £1,000 on a 4 grand bike, don't make sense. That's my personal opinion. I think it's been interesting actually the last few days. There's been the Fortnite video on the Scram, which I watched, which was really good. I mean, all his videos are great, so not knocking him, or the video content, but his claim that the Himalayan was the worst adventure bike on the market, I find that quite a sad indictment of mainstream, because he is mainstream now, looking down upon a market, the Himalayan CRFs, KTMs, 390s, GSs, looking down on that sort of bike. And I'm not sure, you know, what do you want from an adventure bike? Well, for me as an adventure bike, I want something that's almost disposable. Because I'm going to go through this puddle now. If I bury that bike in that water and I seize the engine, the last thing I want is a 15, 16 grand bike with a massive bill for an engine replacement. You know, 4 or 5 grand. I know it's going to pick up easy. I know if I dent it, I'm not going to care. I can sort of ride it with impunity, and because of that, it gives you confidence. And so I don't know what is the best adventure bike. Is it a Ducati Desert X? You know, like he's done a video on saying it's the best thing ever. Well, maybe it is in the comfort of your own little riding environment with a backup of dealerships and all. You know, it's a press bike. You haven't put your own money into it. But I think when it comes down to what is the best adventure bike, the best adventure bike is the one that you feel you can use the easiest and most comfiest. And if that's a Himalayan or a CRF or whatever, so be it. But I think, you know, that looking down on this sector of the market, for me as a traveller who's been around the world, who's done a lot of trips, done a lot of travelling, the virtues that I see in a bike like this or a CRF or KTM really do trump those bigger bikes. And I've owned GS 1200s. And I loved it as a bike, but is this a better adventure bike than the GS 1200? Yes, it is, because if it falls off a cliff, I'm not bankrupt. You know, if it breaks down in the desert, it might be an hammer and a chisel to fix it. If the GS breaks down or the Desert X breaks down in the desert, you're absolutely snookered. So, yeah, the measure of what is an adventure bike, I think it's here. And I think it's in this category of bikes, this A2 category of bikes. You know, that Vogue 300 Rally at £3,700, if that proves reliable and a good rider, you know, I think that again, it's a real disruptor of this market. A good bike, cheap price, disposable, no brain option. Go and buy it. If you fall off it, who cares? You know, and to me, that's good ingredients. So I think that's about it for Project Himalayan. I don't think I'd spend any more money on this platform, on this bike. And as I say, the two main takeaways, if I was doing a trip tomorrow, seat cover, handlebars. Suspension, if I'm doing trail riding, adds a bit of lift, a bit of clearance. If you're a big guy or a big girl, it adds a bit of firmness in the rear shock to stop it bottoming out a little bit. And in terms of that power, are you going to get to where you're going any quicker for having the cam and the other bits you might fit? No, you're not. Are you going to have a bit more fun along the way? Yeah, quite possibly. So I think that's how you've got to look at it. None of these parts are transformative, and how you choose to modify your bike is going to be different to the next person. You know, you've got to think, what am I using it for? How much do I want to spend? Okay, what are the core ingredients? Another thing that a lot of people fit is the engine guards and the bar risers, and that's two things I definitely wouldn't fit to a Himalayan. The engine guards, because the bike's wide enough and low enough as it is, so the last thing you want to do is add more protrusion here that's going to catch ruts and things. It's just, there's no need, because these are good crash bars. and if you put handguards on the end of the bars, that's taken care of. The crashing is pretty much taken care of. So all you add is weight and width. I don't see the point. In terms of the bar risers, which a lot of people think, well, I'm going off-road, I need to get bar risers fitted. Well, the issue with bar risers is it removes, or it changes the natural position of the bike. It brings your weight, it brings your weight back and your body backwards. And what that does is take some of the weight off the front, which in turn takes some of the stability and purchase in the tarmac or in the dirt from the front. So I find when you ride a bike with bar risers, the front feels really loose and sloppy, twitchy. And it's because your weight's pulled back on the bike, it makes the back end heavy and the front end light. And I don't think it's a good thing, even though people will sell you bar risers saying you need them, and some people from a comfort point of view might need them. But fitting them as a matter of habit to a bike you're going to ride off-road, I think it's the wrong thing. I mean, if you go to Sweet Lamb and speak to Molly, the chief instructor there, he'll make you take your bar risers off because it ruins the stance of the bike. So, yeah, that's something to think about. I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong answer, but there's a massive aftermarket accessory market out there that's trying to sell you everything it can. And some of it's good stuff and some of it's crap stuff, and some of it works and some of it doesn't, and some of it works for you and some of it doesn't work for you. Everything's personal. So yeah, I've also got, actually I don't want to do a plug, but I've got an off-road training weekend at Sweet Lamb in August for Himalayan riders or anybody in this kind of class of bike. So it's 2 days of solid training, off-road, food, accommodation. It's a bit expensive at 360 quid, but it's KTM's off-road centre, totally taken over by people on bikes with less than 30 horsepower or thereabouts. So yeah, if that's of interest, just get on website dorothyspeedshop.com. Right, I'm going to go do some riding. I was out yesterday, got very wet, but I enjoyed it, you know. Still enjoying this bike. Can't go wrong, can you really? All right, cheers, bye.